Hello and welcome to another episode of the Losers Win Again Fantasy Football Channel. I am your host, Jacob Brown, and we are here to talk about the NFL Week 1 Draftkings slate, cash, GPP lineups. We got them both right here for you and so much more. If you like this content, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And let's just say it's great to have you back, football back. And I'm ready to make some DraftKings lineups. I don't know about y'all. So let's just go ahead and get right after it. But before we do, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you like this content and you want to see more content just like this here on the Losers Win Again Fantasy Football Channel. Man, I'm excited football's back. Let's do this. Let's start off by looking at the team totals here. So I've looked at these team totals like once a week for the last month and a half. And they were pretty much the same all the way up until yesterday. I updated the implied team totals on the site I find them on, and there's a few that are just eye-popping. And of course you got Kansas City and the Los Angeles Chargers and the Indianapolis Colts and the Philadelphia Eagles. They all stayed in that range, but you had Baltimore move up, you've had Cincinnati stay the same. But one game I really want to point out is the Miami Dolphins New England Patriots game. The Dolphins moved up to a 25 implied team total. They're now 3-point favorites after being 2.5-point favorites. And the over-under on this game has turned into a 47 when it was more of like a 43.5 or a 44 a few weeks ago. Another game to talk about here is the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. They have dropped slightly week after week in the last 2 or 3 weeks. They were at like a 50 implied over-under. Now they're at a 48. The Packers have dropped slightly in their implied total, and this game keeps getting closer and closer. So that's definitely something I'm more interested in a GPP perspective. The Arizona Cardinals have dropped down. This game was a lot closer 2 or 3 weeks ago. Now it's looking like Kansas City is the heavy favorites. I mean, first it was like a 2.5-point spread. Now it's a 4.5-point spread. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on. And the over-under stayed about the same. I think it was at like a 52.5. It's now at a 53.5. So that's pretty interesting. But yeah, definitely want to keep an eye on these games here. The Kansas City Chiefs and Cardinals game, the Los Angeles Chargers, Raiders, Colts, Texans, Eagles, Lions, Ravens, Jets, Bengals, Steelers, Dolphins, Patriots, Packers, Vikings, Cardinals, Chiefs. And those are the main ones that I have interest in. Let's go ahead and move on to the injuries. Here's some key injuries that we need to watch. Isaiah Spiller for the Los Angeles Chargers looks like he's going to be out for week 1. Joshua Kelly looks to benefit. Khalil Herbert, Irv Smith, probable. Treylon Burks is questionable. But he's just out of play for me in general. Even if he was in, I wouldn't have very much interest in him. I don't really have much interest in the Titans receiving core for week 1. Jalen Waddle looks to be probable for week 1. He was dealing with a lower body injury. Looks like he's practiced already some this week, so definitely not a concern there. Treycon Thornton for the New England Patriots is out with a collarbone injury, which I think who benefits most from this is Kendrick Bourne. Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Drake London is questionable with a knee. He was seen on the practice field Monday. The Chiefs wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster has been dealing with a knee injury all offseason. He looks to be probable. He's been practicing for about a week and a half now. Didn't play in the last preseason game, so he looks to be okay. Someone to be a little concerned about is Nicole Hartman. He's questionable with a groin injury. Players that will benefit from this are Sky Moore and MVS. Philadelphia Eagles running back Miles Sanders is dealing with a hamstring injury. He did not play in the preseason, but he has started practicing as of September 1st. So it looks like he might be in for week 1. I'm sure they're going to gradually bring him in. So the player that would benefit the most is not Kenneth Gainwell, it's Boston Scott. Because Boston Scott sat with the starters in the last preseason game while Kenneth Gainwell played. I believe Boston Scott is the number 2 back in Philadelphia. The Giants wide receiver Kadarius Toney looks to be probable as he's been dealing with a knee injury, and looks like he will be back in time for week 1. Wide receiver Sterling Shepard still trying to get back in for the Giants. He's been dealing with an Achilles injury that he suffered last year. He's trying to recover from that. It's still unclear if he can make it for week 1, but Rondell Moore is going to benefit a lot without Sterling Shepard there. J.D. McKissick for the Washington Commanders is questionable with the groin. I believe he's going to play, so no real concerns there for me. Running back from the Jacksonville Jaguars, James Robinson, is probable, recovering from his Achilles injury that he suffered last year. He should be ready week 1 on a limited role. Still like Travis Etienne. Josh Jacobs has been dealing with an undisclosed injury. If he, for some reason, misses Zamir White, will be a huge play. Patriots tight end Hunter Henry has been dealing with an undisclosed injury. He looks like he will be ready for week 1, but if for some reason he missed, the player that will benefit the most is backup tight end Jonnu Smith. Darren Waller from the Raiders has been dealing with a hamstring injury, and he has been sitting out of practice. I don't know if it's because of contract negotiations or if this is a serious injury. It looks as of right now that he's going to play. I have him listed as probable, so I say he's going to play. But if he did miss, Foster Moreau would be the one that benefits the most from Darren Waller missing. Robert Tonyan for the Green Bay Packers is still listed as questionable. He's been dealing with the knee injury that he suffered last year. He's trying to come back from that. Josiah DeGuara would benefit the most from Robert Tonyan missing. The New Orleans Saints wide receiver Michael Thomas was dealing with a hamstring injury about 2 weeks ago, but he looks like he's going to be a full go week 1. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has also been dealing with a concussion. He looks to be ready for week 1. Green Bay Packers wide receiver Christian Watson is dealing with a knee injury he suffered in college last year. He looks to be questionable, but Matt LaFleur is hopeful that he will play week 1. So don't be surprised if you see him play, but he's probably going to be coming off the bench. Romeo Dobbs is still a great play, even if Watson does play, in my opinion. New York Jets quarterback Zach Wilson looks like he could still play, but for some reason, if he doesn't, Joe Flacco would be backing up Zach Wilson. So keep an eye on that, but I still think Zach Wilson's in play. Titans wide receiver Robert Woods is listed as probable after dealing with an ACL injury last year. 49ers running back Elijah Mitchell looks probable after dealing with a hamstring most of training camp and preseason. Baltimore running back J.K. Dobbins is listed as questionable. There's some sites that are listing him as doubtful, but as of right now, he's listed as questionable. If he does not play, Mike Davis will turn into a great value play. If he does play, I don't want nothing to do with this backfield. The Steelers running back Najee Harris was dealing with a grade A Liz Frank injury earlier in August. It looks like he's going to be a full go week 1, so there's no concerns there as of right now. Brian Robinson is out. Everyone knows about his personal situation. Hopefully he can get back to full health soon. But this really does benefit Antonio Gibson the most. Washington tight end Logan Thomas looks to be out for week 1. There's been reports that he's debating on playing week 1 or week 2. Just know he'll be back soon, and I'm real excited for him to come back. He's one of my favorite tight ends to play in DFS. But as of right now, John Bates looks to be the backup tight end for Washington and benefits the most from Logan Thomas being out. Another interesting tight end injury is Zach Ertz. He's been dealing with a knee injury for about a month now. At first, I thought this was no big deal, that he would be probable by the end of this week. But the head coach, Cliff Kingsbury, has came out and said they're taking Zach Ertz as a day-to-day. So he's definitely a questionable play. And if he does not play, Trey McBride, the rookie they drafted last year, looks to be the one that would be in line for a player that most benefits. Pharaoh Brown for the Houston Texans is doubtful. I don't think he plays. He's been dealing with a hamstring injury for about 2 weeks now, which is fine because I still like Brevin Jordan regardless if Pharaoh Brown plays or not. And an injury that's been developing over the last 3 or 4 days is Rondell Moore. He's dealing with a hamstring or undisclosed injury. I think it's a lower body injury, but he did practice Monday, which is a good sign. But if for some reason he doesn't play, Greg Dortch, who was heavily involved in the preseason, would be the one that benefits the most from Rondell Moore missing. Those are the injury updates as of today, September 3rd. And not much has changed since September 3rd. We're recording this on September 5th, but this is the injury news that we've gotten so far. If you feel like I left somebody out, let me know in the comments section. So now we're moving on to the running back interest, and man, I love who we got on this list. Jonathan Taylor is probably the most obvious cash game play in all the running backs. Christian McCaffrey is a 1A, 1B scenario here. Play Jonathan Taylor, play Christian McCaffrey in your cash game lineups. Joe Mixon, great value play at his price point. Aaron Jones, great play at his price point. Najee Harris at $6,400 is another great play at his price point. One of the best values on the slate for week 1 as of right now. Saquon Barkley at $6,100 is also another great value play. Yeah, guys, I would try to fluctuate any of these running backs you can in your cash games. I'm going to show you my cash game build here in a little bit, but I definitely would persuade you to have Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey to start out your lineup. Here's some other running back interest that I have that you should be playing in tournaments. At the top, we got Derrick Henry, who's going to be a little bit popular from the ownership I've seen so far, but I'm really wanting to let the ownership fizzle out a little bit in the next couple days before we get the right assumption on who we think is going to be owned where they are. But yeah, Derrick Henry looks to be a good play. Austin Eckler probably looks to be my favorite stacking option with Justin Herbert, just due to the fact that he's just fitting so well in the projections that we have when I pair him with Herbert. Dalvin Cook, he looks to just be getting overlooked tremendously, and I love it. If we can get him like under 5% owned week 1, that would just be awesome, because the time to play Dalvin Cook's when no one else is playing him. There's been weeks over the years where he's been pretty low owned and he just takes over a whole entire slate. And that wants me to bring up Alvin Kamara as well, because same scenario. I mean, I think he'll probably be a little bit more popular than Dalvin Cook, but when he goes overlooked, he breaks slates. These two guys right here are slate-breaking running backs. Alvin Kamara, I got a little more interest in him, but I also want to play Dalvin Cook when I can. James Conner, I don't have a lot of interest in him. He's mainly just a run back option for me in Kansas City stacks. Deandre Swift, I think he's a little too expensive in my opinion, but if you are playing a lot of the Philadelphia and Detroit game and you need some different options, DeAndre Swift's a pretty good option. David Montgomery, he looks like he's the only real healthy back in Chicago. I don't see anyone taking any snaps from him. I think this is going to be almost the exact same scenario it's been the last 2 seasons. So definitely a play for me in tournaments. Antonio Gibson, I was completely off of him until what happened with Brian Robinson. But I do have some slight interest in him now. He'd be a pretty good pivot off of Saquon Barkley. Travis Etienne looks to be an interesting play. Should be getting a lot of receptions and carries at a cheap price point. This could be the cheapest we see him for the rest of the year. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, probably one of my favorite 5K GPP plays, just due to the fact that I think he's going to go really overlooked, and he could be a great run back option for Kyler Murray stacks. AJ Dillon, I really want to like AJ Dillon this week. If I get into some Green Bay, Minnesota stacks, I might have to consider him as a run back option for my Minnesota stacks. So I wouldn't put it past me to get some by the end of the week. Chase Edmonds probably right there with Clyde Edwards-Helaire is one of my favorite 5K plays for GPPs. I think he's going to be in a great situation week one, and that over-under keeps stacking up real high, and I just can't ignore the Miami game anymore. Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was completely ignoring that game, and I'm getting more and more amped up about it. Jeff Wilson at 5,100. Okay, so the next 4 running backs I'm going to talk about, I'm going to kind of pair them together because these are all based off injuries. If Elijah Mitchell for some reason can't play, I want to play Jeff Wilson. And I don't think he'll be an extremely great value like some of these other guys I'm getting ready to mention, but I think he will be a viable play. Damien Pierce, he's the clear-cut number 1 starter for Houston now. I don't know if I really want to get to him just due to the fact that it looks like they're going to be playing from behind a lot. But that is going to be a sneaky tournament play. Take some risk on Damien Pierce. Then we get to Boston Scott for the Eagles. If Miles Sanders can't play, Boston Scott looks to be a very interesting tournament play. And Mike Davis will also be a very interesting tournament play. But these two could very well be cash game plays as well. And then if you can get one of these guys in your cash game lineups, you're basically going to be able to unlock Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, possibly even get to play like Justin Jefferson and Devonta Adams together. So definitely some news we're going to have to keep an eye on as we're going towards week one. The most likely, I think, is what's going to happen is J.K. Dobbins is going to miss and Mike Davis is going to end up starting. It looks like Miles Sanders is going to play and it looks like Elijah Mitchell is going to play. But, yeah, we still got about 5 days before this happens. So we just got to keep an eye on injury news. We're not going to go over every single running back you need to pay, but here are the key running backs you should not be playing in week one. Nick Chubb at 6,500 is in a very terrible game environment, and I just don't like his chances there. Josh Jacobs, I was on him early in August, but now the way Josh McDaniels is running this offense, it looks like it's going to be a running back by committee approach, way different than we've ever seen the Raiders play since John Gruden's been there. Alexander Madison, this is not a playing point. I mean, if Dalvin Cook was out, maybe, but 6,200, no. Mark Ingram, too expensive, 5,900, no. Cordell Patterson, 5,800. I don't have any interest in Cordell Patterson this week. I find it very hard for me to want to play him. We got to wait till that price point drops. Damien Harris at 5,700, not very interested. Ramandra Stevenson looks like he's going to be taking over the starting role. Kareem Hunt at 5,700, no interest for me. James Robinson at 5,600, looks like he's going to be on a snap count. Probably won't be playing him. J.K. Dobbins at 5,600. If he's in, I still don't have no interest in J.K. Dobbins this week. I think he'll be in a limited role if he does play, and if he doesn't play, well, you don't play him. Breece Hall at 5,500. We've heard some rumblings that Michael Carter could be the starter week one. He was practicing with the starters last week. I just don't think it's his time yet. A lot of people are going to take a chance on him, which might work out for them, but I'm not going to be one of them. Ramandra Stevenson, we just discussed earlier when we were talking about Damien Pierce. I do have some interest in him, but not enough to put him in a GPP. If I end up getting on Tua stacks, I might have Ramandre as a run back option. I'm not 100% sure yet if I'm going to do that. Then we got Chuba Hubbard here. No interest there. Elijah Mitchell, he's been dealing with that hamstring injury. This is definitely going to be a running back by committee approach as well. So I just don't have a lot of interest there. Miles Sanders, same thing. If he's in, no interest in the whole Philadelphia backfield. Jamal Williams, too expensive. Not a big enough role. Ronald Jones, not a big enough role, too expensive. Khalil Herbert's too expensive. We talked about Michael Carter. No interest there for me. J.D. McKissick, I got a tad bit of interest, but not enough to make him an X play. Naheem Hines, 5,100, no interest. Gus Edwards, he's out. Samaje Perine, no. Hassan Haskins is not even the running back too. He's too expensive. Dontrell Hilliard is the backup for the Titans. Terrion Davis, his price is just way too high. 5,000 flat for being the running back 3. So no interest for me on these guys as of right now. But check out my final thoughts video later in the week to see if this changes. Now we're moving on to the quarterbacks, and at the top here we got Patrick Mahomes at $7,700. He's obviously the best player on the slate in the best game environment. Definitely going to get some Patrick Mahomes in my Week 1 rosters. Lamar Jackson, I have a cash-only tag on him because mainly I don't feel comfortable playing him in tournaments. There's some weeks, look at the box score, there's some weeks where he doesn't throw the ball, but only maybe 20 to 25 times a game. I just don't feel comfortable with playing him. The reason why I only want to play him in cash games is because of the rushing floor he has. So, yeah, only a cash game play for me. Kyler Murray in the best game environment on the slate. Definitely going to want to consider him right behind Patrick Mahomes. I think actually I like Kyler Murray a little bit more than Patrick Mahomes just because he's cheaper. And I think he has a little bit better chemistry with his pass catchers, but we'll see. I mean, I really think Kyler Murray is the best quarterback on the Week 1 main slate. Jalen Hurts is $6,800. I know a lot of people are excited to play Jalen Hurts with the newly acquired A.J. Brown against the Detroit Lions, but he's only a cash game play for me. $6,800, I think he's a little bit expensive. They could run the ball a lot. There's some games where he doesn't throw the ball that much. Same thing as Lamar Jackson. But I get why people want to play him in tournaments, and I get people are going to stack him, but I'm not going to stack him Week 1. Now we move on to Joe Burrow. I think he's going to be a little bit more popular than I thought maybe a couple weeks ago, but at $6,400, that's just too cheap. He should be right there with Kyler and Lamar, maybe right in the Jalen Hurts range. So I definitely like Joe Burrow for Week 1. He's probably my second favorite play behind Kyler Murray. And then to round it out here, we got Trey Lance and Daniel Jones. I typically, it also depends on the week, but I typically go cheaper in cash games for quarterbacks. Trey Lance is almost in the exact same situation as like Lamar Jackson. More Lamar Jackson than Jalen Hurts, because I don't think they're going to let him throw the ball very much. So you're going to really be relying on his rushing floor. And if he has a good game, he can get you anywhere between 15 to 22 points. That seems a little more optimal than getting like 30-plus points, because when we're playing quarterbacks in tournaments, we're shooting for 30, 35, 40 points from a quarterback. We want slate-breaking potential. Lamar Jackson has slate-breaking potential. But like Jalen Hurts, Trey Lance, they really don't have slate-breaking potential for me. Kyler Murray has slate-breaking potential. he can get you 30 to 40 DraftKings points on any given Sunday. So can Patrick Mahomes. And to round out this list, with Daniel Jones, I think he's just too cheap for week 1. 5,000 flat for a starting quarterback. I mean, if he was like 55, 56, 5,700, then this would be a different story. But 5,000 flat for him is just way too cheap. I typically go cheap week 1. The last 2 years I've gone cheap for week 1. So my cash game quarterback as of right now is Daniel Jones. Now we're going on to the QBs that I have the most interest in GPPs. Top off the list, we got Justin Herbert. Look, he's in the second best game environment on the slate. I know he's a little more expensive. He was somebody that I was saying you shouldn't buy high on. Definitely a limited selection of lineups that I want from him. Aaron Rodgers at $7,000 flat looks to be a very interesting GPP play because he's still up there in the top over-unders on the slate. But the game environment has gone down from like a 2.5 point favorite to now a 1.5 point favorite. And the over-under has dropped a point. So I think a lot of people are going to get off this game and go more to like the Detroit-Philadelphia game and Arizona-Kansas City game. So that's something that you might want to consider because I think a lot of people don't really know who to pair with Aaron Rodgers right now. Then Kirk Cousins. I got some interest in Kirk Cousins because I think a lot of people are going to be playing Derek Carr, and they're in like almost the exact same price range. So that would be a way to get different because I think Derek Carr is going to be higher owned than Kirk Cousins. Then we move on to Trevor Lawrence. I really like Trevor Lawrence just due to the fact that Washington was the worst team or worst defense against opposing quarterbacks last year for fantasy football. Trevor Lawrence has got a revamped offense. He's got his running back and Travis Etienne. He's got a new weapon in Christian Kirk and Zay Jones and Evan Ingram. Marvin Jones is returning. It's an exciting time to be a Jacksonville Jaguar fan. And I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a play that's not going to be looked at very much. And that could be the sneaky shootout game, Jacksonville and Washington. So I'm definitely down for that. Matt Ryan, look, a lot of his guys are pretty good values. Michael Pittman's the best value, and we'll get into him later, but he's one of the best values for the wide receivers. And then Paris Campbell's another good $3,000 value. So I'm definitely going to have some interest in Matt Ryan. Everyone's going to be playing Jonathan Taylor, and I think this would be a great way to get different is playing Matt Ryan and some stacks to kind of face that Jonathan Taylor play. And then you got Mitch Trubisky at the bottom here. I'm strongly considering taking Mitch Trubisky out and putting Tua Tagovailoa in. But that's something you might have to wait for in our final thoughts video. The reason why I'm interested in Mitch Trubisky right now is I think this game's going to be a lot closer than what people think it's going to be. And his pass catchers have great value, and we're going to get into them here in a little bit. But he's got a pretty good offense around him, and I think he's going to put up numbers. Daniel Jones and Mitch Trubisky, like, I could easily change my mind on the cash games and go Mitch Trubisky if I really wanted to. We still got some time to think about that, but as of right now, Mitch Trubisky is in play for me in tournaments. Here's the quarterbacks I have no interest in. At the top, we've been talking about Tua a lot. That could change before the slate locks. But I have no interest in Ryan Tannehill. I have no interest in Justin Fields. I would like to have some interest in Carson Wentz, but I think I'd just rather play Trevor Lawrence at that price point, or even Tua. Jared Goff, if I was playing the Millionaire Maker, I probably would. Or if I'm playing 150 lineups and I wanted to get really crazy, Jared Goff looks like an interesting play, but that's not what I do. I play more of single entries and 3 maxes. Mac Jones, no interest there. Jameis Winston, he was my guy week 1 last year, but I don't think I'm going to get there this year. Baker Mayfield, no interest. Davis Mills, no interest. Marcus Mariota, no interest. No interest in Jacoby Brissett. And whether if it's Joe Flacco or Zach Wilson, I won't have any interest there either. But yeah, those are the quarterbacks that I'm fading week 1. Now we're moving on to the wide receivers that I have interest in. Top it off, we got Devonta Adams. Look, Devonta Adams is probably the best wide receiver in all of pro football. Definitely going to want some of him, even at that price point. Justin Jefferson, great play. Going to be a great tournament play. I would even play him in cash games. Jamar Chase, I'm really liking more and more as we get closer to week 1. Definitely someone I'm considering in cash games. A.J. Brown looks to be a decent play. I'm not as high on him as I am some other players. Brandon Cooks looks to be pretty good. A little expensive, but good. Marquise Brown, my favorite pairing option with Kyler Murray. T. Higgins, another good option. That Joe Burrow stack's pretty cheap, man. Like if you can get both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in your lineup and still have a lot of cash to play with. Deontay Johnson at 6,000 flat looks to be pretty expensive or pretty cheap for his price point, and I'm gonna get a lot of Deontay Johnson. I can already tell. DJ Moore, pretty cheap, just like Deontay Johnson. I really want to get involved with him. Week 1, Michael Thomas, $5,700. You can't really beat that. That's a great price point for Michael Thomas. If he's 100% healthy, you better watch out for him. Week 1, Michael Pittman, the best value on the slate for wide receivers, so you're definitely going to want a piece of him. Week 1 in cash games, tournaments, wherever you can get him, you should try to get him. Rashad Bateman, I have him as a yes right now because he's basically the only wide receiver worth mentioning on the Ravens right now. Juju Smith-Schuster looks to be the wide receiver 1 for Kansas City. You're going to want to take advantage of that. Marvin Jones, the price point's just hard to ignore. Definitely going to want him in some Trevor Lawrence stacks. Kadarius Toney, really cheap. Looks to be the wide receiver 1 for the Giants. Definitely going to want some of him. Rondell Moore's dealing with the injury right now. It's an undisclosed injury, but he's practicing as of Monday, and hopefully he has a good week of practice so he can play week 1. Jahan Dotson looks to be Carson Wentz's favorite target from camp and preseason, so that's definitely something to consider at that price point. And Romeo Dobbs looks to be starting week 1 instead of Christian Watson, so that's definitely something to consider as well. So those are my main wide receiver interests for week 1. Now we're moving on to the wide receivers I have interest in tournaments. Top off the list, we got Deebo Samuel. He's got slate breaking potential pretty much any given week. Keenan Allen, I like the game environment. The price point on him is a little high for me for week 1. The Chargers players in general are just too high priced for week 1, but we're definitely going to get some different variations of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams at 6,600. But somebody I think is way too cheap is Tyreek Hill. We mentioned earlier when we were talking about the implied totals, Vegas odds, and stuff like that, that the Dolphins over-under has risen to 47 when it was at like 43.5, 44. The Miami Dolphins implied point total or implied team total is at 25 now, and I think Tyreek Hill is going to have a big reason why that is. So definitely got some interest in Tyreek Hill for tournaments. Terry McLaurin, look, when prices first came out, I was super high on Terry McLaurin, but looking at his price point and his performance of last year, he's definitely going to have to prove that he's worth that price point for me. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I like his price point, but there's somebody else on his team that has been building some chemistry with Jared Goff. And then you got to think, when Amon-Ra St. Brown was going off those last 6 weeks of the season. TJ Hawkinson wasn't there. Deandre Swift was in and out during that time frame. DJ Chark wasn't there last year. Josh Reynolds was his biggest competition last year. Quintez Cephas was his biggest competition last year. He's definitely going to have to earn those targets this year. I know they're going to get him involved in the offense, but I don't think it's going to be at the same clip as we saw last year. Hunter Renfrow, 5,800. I would like Hunter Renfrow a little bit more if Darren Waller was for some reason ruled out. We know Darren Waller is questionable right now. But, Hunter Renfrow at 5,800 with Devonta Adams, Darren Waller taking some snaps. I mean, it's going to be hard to want to play Hunter Renfrow. Darnell Mooney, I just don't have a lot of interest in the Bears offense, but I might get a couple of shares of him. He's definitely a good tournament play. I think it's going to be pretty low owned. Robert Woods, he'll be low owned. He should lead the team in targets for wide receivers. Allen Lazard, he looks to be the number one. He's kind of dealing with some type of injury right now. I don't think it's anything too serious, but Allen Lazard is the number one running back or wide receiver in Green Bay. So you're definitely going to want him if you're rostering Aaron Rodgers or if you want him as a run back option for your Viking stacks. Devonta Smith could be a very interesting GPP play because everybody's going to want to play the stack of Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and probably Dallas Goedert, but I think Devonta Smith is going just a tad bit underlooked. He's in that same price range as Michael Pittman and Rashad Bateman, and I think he's going to go underutilized in rosters, so definitely get some Devonta Smith in your lineups if you're playing Jalen Hurts stacks. Adam Thielen at 5,400 is just way too cheap. Last year he was in the 6K range, and now you're telling me he's almost $5,000? That's just way too cheap. That's criminally underpriced, and I think he's a perfect tournament play to get some leverage off of Justin Jefferson, get some leverage off of just that game in general. You already know who the high-owned players are going to be. It's going to be, if you're doing Kirk Cousins stacks, it's going to be Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, maybe throw in Irv Smith. I think Adam Thielen's going to go way under-owned, and he's just a great option. Elijah Moore, 5,100. If you're playing Raven stacks, I'm not playing Raven stacks, but if you are playing Raven stacks, Elijah Moore is the best run back option for the Jets. Christian Kirk, I think he's too cheap. I think Trevor Lawrence and him are going to have a great day together week one. Definitely someone I'm considering in tournaments. Chase Claypool is now the slot wide receiver for Pittsburgh. So I really like him. And if I'm playing Mr. Trubisky stacks, I'm pairing him up with Deontay Johnson. I'm pairing him up with Pat Freiermuth and George Pickens. And if I'm playing Joe Burrow stacks, I'm playing Claypool and those run back options. He's at a great price point, and he could go a little bit under-owned too because Deontay Johnson's also at a great price point. So it's going to be hard to decipher who you want to play if you're in a limited roster construction. Drake London, he practiced Monday. I don't think I'm going to be stacking the Saints to have him as a run back option or stacking the Falcons to have him in lineups. I don't think I'm going to get to him, but he is a pretty interesting tournament play. Corey Davis, he is probably the second best run back option on the Jets. If you're playing Baltimore stack, Sterling Shepard, I'm interested in him if he's in. Kenny Galladay, I'm interested because I think a lot of people are going to be on Kadarius Toney. Devontae Parker, have a little bit of interest in him, but not a lot, just as a run back option if I'm playing Miami stacks. And Tyler Boyd, I only have interest in if I'm using him in a Joe Burrow stack. So Robbie Anderson at 4,800 is also interesting. Probably won't get there, but DJ Chark at 4,800, I think he's going to be a very sneaky GPP play, and I have a lot of interest in him. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, honestly, looking at projections, I think I would just rather play Sky Moore, who's almost $1,000 cheaper and has basically the same projection as Marquez Valdes-Scantling. The only thing I will say about Marquez Valdes-Scantling is he has a higher ceiling than Sky Moore. I might get a couple of different variations of him and Sky Moore in lineups with Patrick Mahomes, but it's not going to be a lot for me with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. AJ Green, I'm starting to get a little more interested in him just due to the fact that Rondell Moore has been dealing with the injury. He seems like he's after Marquise Brown, he's the healthiest wide receiver on the team. And the most talented behind Marquise Brown. So definitely has some interest there. Nicole Hartman, he's been dealing with injury. I don't think I'm going to get to him at all. He's probably going to end up being a no by the end of the week. Chris Olave, I want to get to him. I don't know if I will. I like this game environment for him. I think he's going to show out week 1, and he'll probably be the best rookie wide receiver for week 1. Byron Pringle at 4,400. I don't really have a lot of interest in Bears players, but I think he's a proven veteran, and I think he will get some targets his way from Justin Fields. Large field GPP play for me only. Alvin Peoples-Jones, same thing there. No Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, so it's going to be hard to decipher who you want to play in Cleveland. These first couple weeks, you kind of got to see what Jacoby Brissett can do. Speaking of Jacoby's, we got Jacoby Myers, who is just due for a big touchdown day. I mean, last year he was so close so many times, and he just never got it. I'm really rooting for him this year, personally, and I do want some pieces of him, especially when I was talking about those Miami stacks. Jacoby Myers would be a great run back option. He's a cheap run back option. Nico Collins has really excited me during the preseason. I think he's somebody that we need to keep an eye on because this price could go up from 4,200 to like 56, 57, 5,800 by week 2 if he has a good day. Definitely want to consider playing him. George Pickens from the Steelers showed out in preseason. He looks to be the wide receiver 2 outside when Claypool is in the slot, so that's something to keep an eye on. Laviska Shenault got traded to the Carolina Panthers. I don't know how this offense is going to look, but I'm getting more excited about the Carolina offense leading towards week 1. Probably won't play him, but definitely a large field play if you're using Baker Mayfield and stacking him. Alec Pierce at 3,900. He's not projecting very well compared to somebody we're going to mention here later, Paris Campbell. He's definitely the third option for me on the Colts. Sky Moore, I like him more than MVS. I like him more than Nicole Hartman. I'm definitely going to make him a priority week 1 and Patrick Mahomes stacks. Joshua Palmer, definitely got some interest in him. I think he's going to be a big, deep threat player, someone you can just push the ball down the field with. And now that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are just so expensive to stack together, you're definitely going to have to get a little bit of Joshua Palmer in your lineups to create some value in that lineup. Randall Cobb, as of right now, he's projecting higher than Dobbs. He's projected higher than Christian Watson. At that price point, I really like Randall Cobb. Paris Campbell, we mentioned him earlier. He's my second favorite pass catcher on the Colts for week 1. I think he's going to ball out. Then we got Shi Smith at $3,000 flat. He was promoted to the wide receiver 3 role. With Laviska Shenault there, I don't know if that's going to change or if he is going to be the actual wide receiver 3. We'll have to wait and see. I was a little more excited about that when I was reading the camp news, but when the trade went down with Carolina and Jacksonville for Shenault, it kind of slowed my roll a little bit on Shi Smith. Rondell Robinson looks very interesting at $3,000 flat. I'm definitely going to want bits and pieces of him, and he might even be able to turn into a yes for me if we get some injury news on Sterling Shepard before the slate locks. I could definitely see myself getting to him. And then to bottom out this list, Andy Isabella and Greg Dortch are both on the Arizona Cardinals. I've only got them on there just in case Rondell Moore misses, but if Rondell Moore is out, neither one of these players got a lot of interest for me. Let's go ahead and go to the nose we got for wide receivers. Now we're moving on to wide receivers we want to fade. Obviously, we can't get every single name on this list here, so let's just go over some of the key ones here. Jalen Waddle, he's a no for me as of right now, but like I said, if I get some more interest in Miami Dolphins stacks as the team total rose, Jalen Waddle is going to become an X for me. Amari Cooper at $5,900, no interest there. That receiving course is so uncertain, and I really don't know what Amari Cooper is going to do. If you think you have a better idea of what he can do, go ahead and play him, but he's not for me week one. Jameson Williams is out for the foreseeable future. Brandon Ayuk's getting a lot of hype right now from the 49ers camp. He's just not someone I'm interested in, but if you're playing Trey Lance stacks, of course play Brandon Ayuk with Trey Lance. Christian Watson, no interest there for me. Too expensive for the role that he looks like he's going to get if he does play. He's still questionable. We got to keep an eye on that injury report. Treylon Burks has been ruled as the wide receiver 4 as of right now, so don't really have no interest there. Jarvis Landry at $5,000 flat. There's a lot of mouths to feed in New Orleans, and I don't think Jarvis Landry is the key guy, so it's going to be interesting to see what that Saints offense looks like for the first week of the season. KJ Osborne for the Minnesota Vikings just seems a little too expensive to me. At that price point, I would rather just pay up like $500 more for Adam Thielen. Nick Westbrook-Akine looks to be the wide receiver that's ahead of Treylon Burks. Don't really have a lot of interest in the Tennessee receiving corps other than maybe Robert Woods. Sammy Watkins at $4,700 is just too expensive for me when you can go ahead and get Romeo Dobbs or Randall Cobb. I could change my mind about Sammy Watkins, but as of right now, he's a no for me. Garrett Wilson, he's the wide receiver 4 on his team, or the wide receiver 3 on his team. Corey Davis is now the wide receiver 2, so that just diminishes my interest in him. I think he's too expensive to be a wide receiver 3. Nicole Hartman, no interest as he is injured. Terrace Marshall, no interest because he's basically getting weaved out of the equation. They promoted Shi Smith to the wide receiver 3, then they traded for Laviska Shenault. Terrace Marshall, not on my radar. Treycon Smith's not on my radar. I mean, you got Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, and Jarvis Landry all in front of him. Definitely not someone I'm going to want to play. I got a little interest now in Kendrick Bourne now that Treycon Thornton is out, but if I'm playing those Miami stacks, I might consider him as a run back option. But I mean, Jacoby Myers is $4,300 or $100 more. So if you're just doing a one-off, I'd probably rather play Jacoby Myers. Brian Edwards at $4,200, no interest there. No interest in Darius Slayton. No interest in Curtis Samuel, even though I might change my mind about Curtis Samuel. That could be something that we could do. We got this YouTube ad.
Installation of 4 select tires. So whether it's camping or tailgating or any other ing this fall, shop Michelin Tires at Midas.com.
You heard him, folks. Shop Michelin Tires. Anyway, let's get back to this list. So Curtis Samuel, no. Zay Jones is a no. Olamide Zacchaeus is a no. Braxton Berrios is a no. And Cedric Wilson, as of right now, is a no. If we get more interested in Miami stacks, I'm going to be promoting some of these guys to X's, like Jalen Waddle and Cedric Wilson, maybe even Kendrick Bourne. But as of right now, they're no's for me. Let's go ahead and get on to the tight ends. Now let's go ahead and move on to the tight end interest. At the top here, we got Mark Andrews, was the best tight end in the league last year for most of the season. Travis Kelce at $6,600 is Real interesting in tournament plays because Patrick Mahomes is probably going to rely on him a lot in the first couple weeks of the season. Darren Waller at $5,400 is listed as questionable, but I believe he's going to play, and he's one of my favorite cash game plays as of right now. TJ Hawkinson at $4,900 looks to be pretty interesting. He's got a great matchup as Philadelphia was one of the worst teams against tight ends last year, and he won me a lot of money week 1 last year, so he's one of my top interests, so deal with it. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, no, he's a good play. Dallas Goedert at $4,500 even looks better because Detroit was also pretty bad against tight ends last year as well, and he's $400 cheaper, so that's definitely going to be a good pillar for your Jalen Hurts stacks. Cole Kmet at $3,700 is projecting out pretty well for us. He's pretty good value. Wouldn't mind playing him in cash games. It's just a little bit of uncertainty in that Chicago Bears offense. The Minnesota Vikings got Irv Smith at $3,400. Look, guys, I've been wanting to play Irv Smith for like a whole entire year now because last year he was like $3,000 flat, and then he got hurt like the week before the season started or the week of the season starting. So that's how we discovered Tyler Conklin. He's no longer on the team. Irv Smith is probable to play. So I'm going to be excited to play Irv Smith for sure. And then we got Brevin Jordan at $3,100. He's probably one of my favorite punt plays at the tight end position. Wouldn't mind playing him in cash games. I think he's going to have a way bigger role this year. Some tight ends that I have interest in for tournament plays only. Sitting at the top, George Kittle at $5,900. Playing Trey Lance, you obviously want to have some George Kittle. George Kittle has slate breaking potential on any given Sunday. Kyle Pitts, I've really fallen off Kyle Pitts as we've gotten closer and closer to the season starting. $5,700 just seems a little too expensive for me, but I'm sure he's going to play pretty well week 1. Just not a lot of interest. I'd just rather play Darren Waller. He's around the same price point. Zach Ertz is dealing with an injury to the lower body. We don't know if he will be available week 1 right now. Cliff Kingsbury has said that he is day-to-day. Pat Freiermuth, he was dealing with an injury. He looks to be probable for week 1. Definitely somebody I want to get in if I'm playing Mr. Trubisky stacks or running it back with Joe Burrow stacks. Robert Tonyan, hopeful to play. Still questionable. If he doesn't play, Josiah DeGuara will be a great option. Gerald Everett is one of my favorite GPP plays for tight ends at $3,800. I'm really wanting to get after him. With Justin Herbert, it's going to be a great red zone threat. Hunter Henry at $3,800 is also a pretty good play. I mean, Mac Jones really liked throwing the ball to Hunter Henry last year, and if Hunter Henry's fully healthy, you need to get after him. Austin Hooper, I really like Austin Hooper's opportunity here in Tennessee. I think he can revamp his career. You should expect probably about 5 to 6 targets for him, maybe 3 to 4 catches for week 1. Evan Ingram, we could be seeing a whole newly improved Evan Ingram. Think about this, guys. Doug Peterson coached Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, and those are 2 of the maybe top 10 tight ends in football right now. Just think about that when you're thinking about rostering Evan Ingram. I do got a lot of interest in Evan Ingram. Mo Alley-Cox is the starting tight end for the Indianapolis Colts. We know Frank Reich likes to get the starting tight ends involved. So could we have a repeat of like 3 years ago when it was like Mo Alley-Cox and Eric Ebron just going off every other week? Hopeful. Adam Trotman at $3,100. I have a little bit of interest in, but I'm not considering Jameis Winston in lineup, so I'm probably not going to get to him personally. I got Brevin Jordan also as an X, just due to the fact Pharaoh Brown could come back. They signed O.J. Howard to the practice roster, so just some things to consider. I still like him as the best punt play, or John Bates for the Washington Commanders could be a great punt play if Logan Thomas is ruled out for week 1. Got a pretty short list of no's here. We could go through the whole entire list, but these are the key guys you need to know not to play in week 1. Mckissick, David Njoku, CJ Uzoma, Tyler Conklin, Hayden Hurst, Ricky Seals-Jones isn't even on the Giants anymore, Foster Moreau. He's only got interest if Darren Waller's rolled out. Logan Thomas looks to be not going to play, so no for him. Anthony Fersker is a no. Tommy Tremblay is a no. And Jeff Swaim is a no. Ian Thomas is a no. Drew Sample, Harrison Bryant, and Trey McBride. I would say if Zach Ertz is out, Trey McBride is a great punt play at tight end. Here's our defensive interest, all here on one page. I got, as for yeses for cash games and just plays I like in general, we got the Washington Commanders. They're the cheapest favorites on Draftkings for defenses, so that's the main reason why I have interest in them. Then we got the Steelers, and then we got the Jets, and then we got the Lions. But the Steelers, I need to make an edit there, are $2,400, not $2,500. Defensive interest for GPPs, I got the Dolphins, Giants, and Bears. And then for no's, I got a pretty long list. 49ers, Ravens, Colts, Browns, Bengals, Panthers, Chargers, Packers, Chiefs, Cardinals, Falcons, Texans, Vikings. It's still pretty early in the week to be trying to figure out defenses, but I'm sure a couple of these no's are going to turn into X's as the week progresses, but this is just my interest as of right now. We'll go over these again on my final thoughts video later in the week. Let's go ahead and move on to our first look cash game lineup. We got the first look cash game lineup here. Daniel Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Michael Pittman Jr., Rondell Moore, Jahan Dotson, Darren Waller, Jamar Chase, and the Detroit Lions defense. This brings us to a 134.3 projection, a 166.4 ceiling, and a 70.3 floor. And just note, this could very well change before week 1. I think I'm gonna probably end up trying to get to Justin Jefferson over Jamar Chase, and we also have injury news to keep an eye on. If J.K. Dobbins is ruled out, Mike Davis becomes a pretty interesting cash play to me, so that means we would have to move Jonathan Taylor or Christian McCaffrey down to the flex, which would mean Jamar Chase would have to move up, and then we would have to get another wide receiver in there a little more expensive out of Rondell Moore, Michael Pittman, and Jahan Dotson. And I will also say with Jahan Dotson, it's like a coin toss between him and Romeo Dobbs. I think the only reason why I'm kind of going with Dotson is just because Dobbs is probably going to be one of the highest owned wide receivers for cash games. And we got to get a little different. Not a lot different, but I mean, Jahan Dotson could very well have a better game than Romeo Dobbs. I think that's mathematically possible. But yeah, that's my cash game lineup as of right now. Let me drop in the comments and let me know what you think about this cash game lineup. For our first look GPP lineup, we have Joe Burrow sitting at the top with a 23.5 projection. Najee Harris has the Steelers run back option at 17.7 projected. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, as we mentioned, is one of our favorite cheap GPP plays, is projected to do 9.7. Jamar Chase, 17.7. T. Higgins, 14.4 to notch out that stack with the Bengals and the run back option of Najee Harris. Then we have a mini stack with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Rondell Moore. And then we also have another mini stack of Gerald Everett and Devonta Adams with a defense for the Miami Dolphins. So this gives us a projection of 125.3 and a ceiling of 190.2, which we love to see for GPPs, and a floor of 80.5, which is also pretty good for GPPs. Let me know what you think about this first look GPP lineup in the comments section. I think this is still a pretty viable lineup, just due to the fact that Joe Burrow is going to be a little bit popular, and I think the Steelers and Bengals game as a whole is just going to go underlooked. And then, just a heads up, it's very important to have mini stacks. That's why I've got 2 sets of mini stacks. I got the Chargers-Raiders game involved with Devonta Adams and Gerald Everett, and I also got the Chiefs and Arizona Cardinals game involved with Rondell Moore and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Those are the 2 top scoring games on the slate, so you definitely want to be involved with those. That's it for us here at the Losers Win Again Fantasy Football channel. Thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed this content, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and that notification bell to get this and more content just like it. My Patreon provides these sheets we've discussed today and much more for a $5 a month fee. Drop down in the comments to ask me about it. Subscribe to my social media outlets for updates until the slate locks. And drop in the comments and let me know what you think about my first look GPP lineup, my first look cash game lineup. Is there players that you think we should be including? And expect our next video to be a stacking video. But if you feel like you need a little bit more information, there's a lot of videos that I've dropped last week covering every single position in detail, just kind of like we did today. But yeah, as for the Losers Win Again Fantasy Football channel, I'm your host, Jacob Brown. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.